It's raining and the sun shining on me. Look at this. Hold on. Raining and the sun shining. What a beautiful sight. America changing. It's time to take a stand. We the people must unite and take back our eternal consciousness. We must take it back.
The states that elected Trump.
I don't give a who you are. I'll fight you in the damn street right now.
Okay,
All to try and answer the greatest question of our time.
How the did this happen?
Plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992.
We've had Facebook and Google saying that they're going to make sure that, first of all, the World Health Organization version gets free advertisements, and they're going to suppress the other opinion, what they call conspiracies and what have you, and disinformation and fake news. Who decides if it is? They do. Videos taken down purely by AI, algorithm, all these things that were decided in this Gates World Economic Forum 1% simulation 6 weeks before, they should happen or happen.
To be historic, a social media platform fact-checked one of its most famous users. Twitter fact-checked Donald Trump. For the first time in its history, this platform has called tweets by Donald Trump potentially misleading. So what exactly did Trump tweet this time? He claimed that the mail-in ballot system used to conduct polls could lead to substantial fraud. According to Trump, millions of such ballots are sent to everyone and anyone, including illegal residents. He fears they could be robbed and the ballot papers could be illegally printed. Social media was not convinced, so Twitter added a fact-check label to two of Trump's tweets, a blue exclamation mark alert which reads, "Get the facts about mail-in ballots." This link directs users to a page with news articles, posts, and a fact box which suggests that Trump's claim was unsubstantiated. Donald Trump is mighty upset over this unsought fact check, so much so that he's preaching Twitter on Twitter about Twitter. He says this social media platform is stifling free speech and interfering in the 2020 presidential poll. He says that as the President of the United States of America, he will not allow it. Trump says this platform has shown that everything he has been saying about it is correct. He has promised that some big action will follow. He's not specified yet. I'm sure he'll tweet about it. And that's not all. Donald Trump is threatening a crackdown on some other social media platforms which, according to him, are trying to silence conservative voices. He wants them to clean
of it. And one of the big areas that was talked about in this simulation, you can see on the internet.
This is Event 201.
Event 201 is that what we must do in the event of this coronavirus pandemic, which no one was talking about at the time, we must control the narrative. We must stop anti-vaxxers. We must stop people putting out information that's at odds with the World Health Organization narrative. They were saying all this because it was preparation for what was about to happen, and the key players in it knew it was about to happen. So you have the lockdown, and
their job was to safeguard the First Amendment, which is designed to protect the weak, not the strong. The weak are protected by the freedom of speech. And journalists were supposed to care about the weak, about the public, their readers and viewers. They weren't supposed to be simply thugs hired to protect the powerful, but that's what they become. Watch Don Lemon of CNN, who in his defense often has no idea what he's saying, try to bully Twitter into censoring ideas the authorities don't care for.
Twitter wouldn't remove those tweets, and they wouldn't come on this show to talk about their decision to let this disgusting smear stand. People have been removed from Twitter for far less outrageous behavior. Come on, Jack Dorsey. Stop hiding behind the First Amendment and for profit. Stop doing it. Do the right thing.
Stop hiding behind the First Amendment, says Don Lemon, in the
baseless.
Take a moment to digest that. The sitting president is insinuating a journalist is responsible for murder. Just in the last hour, he has now tweeted he's just, quote, joining the chorus of others touting the theory, suggests law enforcement eventually will look into the case, raises the question of what kind of pressure he might be putting on.
Bro, you're definitely a bum, bro.
Tell me what it is. Tell me what his pulse is right now.
Check the pulse.
It's everywhere. Throughout April and May, YouTube, part of Google, took down any video that, quote, explicitly disputes the efficacy of global or local health authority recommended guidance. If you dared to question the decrees of the politicians, some of whom are impressive and wise, many of whom are dumb and making it up as they go along, but if you criticized them, you were censored, and many were censored for doing that. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg recently explained why censorship isn't really bad. In fact, it saves lives.
To crack down on fraud in Medicare and to give beneficiaries faster access to the latest medical devices and therapies, and to take all of the fraud money, and we're finding a lot of it, all of that money that we're finding in fraud, and reduce prices. We provided nearly $1 billion in grants to support home-delivered meals and in-home care for elderly patients and disabled people during the pandemic. We expanded telehealth, which has really turned out to be a very hot subject, right? People that never thought about it, people that didn't like the idea, right, Tracy? They're loving telehealth. It's speedy and it's a lot less expensive. We expanded telehealth for Medicare beneficiaries, and the number of patients using it has increased from roughly 11,000 a week to nearly 1.3 million. So we went from 11,000 people to 1.3 million people a week. But very big where you'll be seeing it, price transparency. Some people think it's bigger than health care. When you look at it, it's going to be bigger than health care. Price transparency. It was signed approximately 9 months ago. It's going through the process, and it'll be here by the first of the year. So I hope you're going to remember me just in case the unthinkable happens. But nobody else would have gotten it but this administration. Price transparency. It's a tremendous, it's going to cut your costs tremendously. And literally one of the biggest people in the field said, transparent, it's going to be a bigger thing. Price transparency, bigger than health care in a true sense.
Congress does its work. Today, for more than 231 years, never have we seen a proxy vote on the floor of the House. This challenges the Constitution only to protect and empower a speaker. It violates the Constitution. It's a dereliction of duty by its members. We look at the history of America through yellow fever of 1793, the Civil War, the burning of this Capitol during the War of 1812, the Spanish flu of 1918, and even 9/11. Congress has never flinched from its constitutional duty to uphold and assemble inside this body. But today is different. As of right now, this morning, 71 Democrats have written to the House clerk to have their vote by another member. The last I checked, one member in this body on the Democratic side will vote for 5 different states, just in this proxy scheme. If I look to California Democrats, more than half of them, have last I checked, 27 Democrats, filed to vote by proxy. That means 19 million people in California will not have a voice, will be lent to somebody else.
Begging Twitter to
delete your tweets talking about how hard it's been for his family, for him to deal with
but
that?
I'm sure that ultimately they want to get to the bottom of it, and it's a very serious situation. I also saw a clip with Joe and Imus where they were having a lot of fun at her expense, and I thought it was totally inappropriate. No, it's a very suspicious thing, and I hope somebody gets to the bottom of it. It'll be a very good thing. As you know, there's no statute of limitations, so it would be a very good thing to do. Okay, who's next?
How are you?
Very well indeed. As usual, when I hear your voice. Thank you very much.
Well, you are doing very well. Congratulations on getting the new prosecutor general. I know there's a lot more that has to be done, but I really think that's good, and I understand you're working with the rod in the coming days on a number of additional laws to secure the IMF. So, but congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general's in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee. And I don't know how you want to go about that. I'm not going to be able to get to Kyiv anytime soon.
First of all, thank you very much indeed for these words of support. Believe me that it was very tough challenge and very difficult job, and Mrs. Timoshenko and Mr. Leshko fraction tried to break this, because we not only voted for the new prosecutor general, which we do in a very short period of time. Within one day we changed the law. By the way, in this law we presenting the new structure of the General Prosecutor Office, including the General Inspection, as we agreed with
that's real.
The transcript of the Flynn-Kislyak conversations.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it too. I mean, I'd like to hear it. The FBI, as you know, said that he didn't lie. And certainly the conversation, almost regardless, it was a good conversation. He was allowed to do it. And the Mueller people, who are have been proven very bad things they did. Very bad things. A lot of bad things are being found out about the hoax. Greatest hoax in the history of our country. And it was an illegal hoax and a very dangerous hoax. And a lot of bad things have been found out about Mueller and the gang. So I would like to hear that conversation. Yeah, I would like to hear it personally.
Thank you, Kayleigh. I'd like to switch gears, asking about President Obama. We had we had an interesting article from Joel Pollak this morning, and I would like to ask you if the president has considered pardoning President Obama for illegally wiretapping on Trump Towers, illegally spying on U.S. citizens, and other potential crimes out there. Has he considered that? So, asking about President Obama, we had we had an interesting article from Joel Pollak this morning, and I would like to ask you if the president has considered pardoning President Obama for illegally wiretapping on Trump Towers, illegally spying on U.S. citizens, and other potential crimes out there. Has he considered that? So Flynn were the men and women in this room. I haven't spoken to him on that specific point, have spoken to him about the matter generally, and I laid out a series of questions that any good journalist would want to answer about why people were unmasked, and all sorts of questions. And I just wanted to follow up with you guys on that. Did anyone take it upon themselves to pose any questions about Michael Flynn and unmasking the President Obama spokesperson? Oh, not a single journalist has posed that question. Okay.
Michael Flynn's name wasn't
so
masked.
I would like
Kayleigh.
to lay out a series of questions, and perhaps if I write them out in a slide format, maybe we're visual learners, and you guys will follow up with journalistic curiosity. So number one, why did the Obama administration use opposition research funded by a political organization and filled with foreign dirt to surveil members of the Trump campaign? Number two, why was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn unmasked? Not by the intel community entirely, but by Obama's chief of staff, by the former Vice President Joe Biden, by Susan Rice, by the Treasury Secretary. I mean, this is extraordinary. And, you know, if it were political appointees in the Trump administration, I can guarantee you I'd have questions in my inbox right now, but apparently Obama's spokesperson does not. Why was Flynn's identity leaked? In a criminal act. It is a criminal act to leak the identity of Michael Flynn to the press, but it happened. Where are the questions to Obama's spokesperson? Because my team would be running around this building should this have happened under the Trump administration. Why did the DOJ, Sally Yates, learn about the unmasking from President Obama? So much for going by the book. As Susan Rice said 3 times, thou doth protest too much, Susan Rice. And then finally, question number 5. Why did James Clapper, John Brennan, Samantha Power, and Susan Rice privately admit under oath they had no evidence of collusion while saying the opposite publicly? It's a long weekend. You guys have 3 days to follow up on those questions, and I certainly hope the next time I ask, some hands go up, because Obama's spokesperson should be asked those questions, because President Trump's spokespeople certainly...
You realize it's a laughable document. There was no basis to even start the Russia investigation.
Say he wants to release an interim report into the matter as soon as next month. Blue Star is the Democrat-run PR firm that did consulting work with Ukrainian gas company Burisma. Burisma is also where Hunter Biden served as a lead on an advisory board despite having no knowledge on energy and gas. Johnson's probe focuses on allegations that Blue Star Strategies sought to leverage Biden's position on the board in order to influence matters at the Obama-era State Department. Senator Johnson says the American people deserve to know more about that alleged partnership.
Because American people need to know the truth. We certainly have uncovered corruption within the Obama administration. In my own oversight efforts started with the Hillary Clinton email scandal, the editing of the exoneration email, and it's the same cast of characters in the FBI that morphed into, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, into the whole Russian collusion hoax. And it was a hoax that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
The subpoena asked for
how this stuff is all connected. Because when you're talking about like really elite levels, the name of the game is blackmail. So they want something on you that they can hold over your head so they can basically own you and tell you what to do. And they film it. And then they own you.
Officer, listen. Because of Wienergate and the sexting scandal, the NYPD started investigating it. Through a subpoena, through a warrant, they searched his laptop and sure enough found those 650,000 emails. They found way more stuff than just the more information pertaining to the inappropriate sexting the guy was doing. They found State Department emails. They found a lot of other really damning criminal information, including money laundering, including the fact that Hillary went to this sex island with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Clinton went there more than 20 times. Hillary Clinton went there at least 6 times. The amount of garbage that...
Any worse with some of these corruptions we've heard about her. Apparently there was a hidden file on Wiener's laptop with a video in it entitled Insurance Policy. Understand, this is no longer a conspiracy. There were a total of 12 individuals who saw this video, and 9 of those 12 people are dead now. The video is described as pure evil.
Previous Gallup polls show how much Congress's image was helped by its reaction to the coronavirus pandemic. So in that March Gallup survey, nearly 6 in 10 Americans said they approved of the job Congress was doing to combat the virus. Now that number did dip slightly to 48% in April, but it was still way above Congress's usual job.
Alexander, tell us, China's now threatening to retaliate against the British government if it bans Huawei from its 5G upgrade.
That's right. The British government had made a decision to allow Huawei to take a small part of the 5G system. And the Chinese were obviously very pleased about that, because the British did that in defiance of the Americans and also Canada and Australia and New Zealand, the other Five Eyes countries. So now the British government is saying, in the wake of coronavirus and the need for supply chains to be more national rather than quite so international, possibly they won't go ahead with allowing Huawei. And the Chinese, not surprisingly, have come out and said that if the British do that, they'll retaliate. They'll attack British trade in some way or another.
When you say unsurprisingly, I suppose it's unsurprising in terms of Chinese diplomacy in the here and now, but it's not the way most nations behave, right?
So this is a really important point, and it's not particularly the way China has behaved over the years, but they've really changed. And I think this is the point that people really have to try to understand. This is not the China of 10 or 15 years ago. This is not the China, or at least the Chinese government that I dealt with. This is a much more aggressive, nationalistic, and in a lot of ways ruthless government than we ever had to deal with in the past. They are threatening a range of countries over a range of different issues. They have attacked our trade here in Australia. They're threatening to do the same to the British. I mean, look, at the end of the day, what they're doing, though, is they're uniting countries against them. And I don't want to see this happen. I don't want to see this bifurcation of the world into American-led West and China, because it's potentially quite dangerous. But what the Chinese government, what the Communist Party in China is doing is trying to treat the Western countries and others in the way they treat their own people, you know, tremble and obey, do what we say or else. And I'm afraid in diplomacy, that's just not going to work.
Now, didn't you...
For a historic launch tomorrow, one that could define the future of the U.S. space program. Ahead of that launch, we sat down with the head of NASA to find out exactly what to expect. Take a look.
Administrator, when you look at that countdown clock, what goes through your mind?
So we think about all the work that's gone into this program. Even before this program, we did commercial resupply of the International Space Station. We're talking about people who have put a decade worth of their life into this upcoming mission, which is launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttles back in 2011. And you think about the decade and how many people worked on this program to get it ready to go. And you're looking at a clock that says we're 23 hours now away from that happening. So this is a lot of work. This is $3.5 billion worth of investment by the American taxpayer. And it's the dawn of a new era in human spaceflight, where NASA is going to be a customer, one customer of many customers in a robust commercial marketplace for human spaceflight.
There's something very powerful about the
services to almost everyone on the planet. And it's a great thing. So this is a wish. It's a very concrete wish that we invent this technology. If you gave me only one wish for the next 50 years, I can pick who's president, I can pick a vaccine, which is something I love, I can pick a vaccine, which is something I love.
Il settore è il noto filantropo e salvatore del mondo, Bill Gates. Lo sappiamo tutti ormai. Bill Gates già nel 2018 profetizzava una pandemia, poi simulata lo scorso ottobre nell'Event 201, in accordo con gli amici di Davos. Ed ormai da decenni si prodiga nello sviluppo di piani di depopolamento e controllo dittatoriale sulla politica globale, puntando ad ottenere il primato su agricoltura, tecnologia e energia, e dice, testuali parole riprese da una sua dichiarazione: se facciamo un buon lavoro con i nuovi vaccini, la sanità e la salute riproduttiva, possiamo diminuire la popolazione mondiale del 10-15%. E continua, aperte virgolette, solo un genocidio può salvare il mondo.
6 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. Let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Do a really great job on new vaccines, health.
Get the support from the United States and from around the world diplomatically, and at the same time we are trying to beef up our own defense capabilities so that China will be deterred.
Taiwan Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, thank you. Good to have you back on the program, sir. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Martha.
Blamed India for the growing cases of the Wuhan virus in Nepal. China has been pulling many strings in Kathmandu, leading the Communist Party government on a path to confrontation with India. The result is this: India-Nepal ties have hit an all-time low, and this decline benefits only one party, China. China is gaining more influence in Kathmandu. As we speak, a Chinese survey team is at the Mount Everest. They're the first group to climb the Mount Everest this year. They're there to remeasure the exact height of the mountain, now of all times. Remember, China's state broadcaster earlier this month had claimed that the Everest belongs to China. Nepal did not comment, let alone protest. The government...
Coronavirus cases here is quite high. The mortality rate is low. According to official statistics, fewer than 4,000 people in Russia have died from the virus. And in fact, the Russian government paper today spoke about the Russian miracle and said that Russia had passed the coronavirus test better than other countries. But there is some skepticism about the figures, and there are reports that not all COVID-related deaths in Russia have been included in the official statistics.
Testing to open up our economy, testing to send our kids back to school, testing to defeat this villainous virus, the coronavirus.
Americans have died in our country because of COVID-19 since early February. And President Trump has clearly failed to lead us through this national health crisis. And we have gathered here since late February in bipartisan briefings, asking for strategy, asking for help.
People that will be getting the test, but Admiral, I'll let you take it from there, please.
So everybody who needs a test can get a test. We have plenty of tests for that. Right now in America, anybody who needs a test can get a test in America with the numbers we have. If you are symptomatic with a respiratory illness, that is an indication for a test, and you can get a test. If you need to be contact traced, you can get a test. And we hope, and not hope, we are starting to have asymptomatic surveillance, which is very important. Again, that's over 3 million tests per week. That is sufficient for everyone who needs a test.
At home. It is a national issue to bring the people to hospital to try to give as much possible care as it is, and there is a very strict regime of autopsies.
Do you believe these numbers?
We have no reason to check anything differently or to say anything
differently. What sort of access do you have? I mean, how can you verify, if you have no reason to believe differently, how can you verify these numbers?
Well, the World Health Organization is not controlling any country. We are not controlling the UK. We are not controlling Slovakia, which has a similar number of that. We are not controlling Russia. We have access to databases when they are shared with us. We have possibilities to ask questions when that is needed, not me personally, but of course the technical departments which are discussing with Russia.
I suppose the skepticism, you've spoken there about the United States, about Britain, about the numbers in these countries. The United States is reaching a milestone of 100,000. Here in the UK, we're well over 30,000. Russia is the third most affected country. It accepts that it has almost 400,000 people who have been affected by coronavirus. Yet when you compare that to the death toll, the death rate, it doesn't seem to match up.
It is a very good question, and it has to be analyzed, I think, for scientific purposes. It will be very important. If we know that Russia has tripled its tests in a month to 9 million, and that 40% of cases are asymptomatic or mild cases, that only 15% of those who are sick are above 65 years of age because the cocooning of elderly started early. These might be some of the elements that can explain it, but definitely, of course, I do believe that the scientists will look into it.
I mean, I suppose you say that you have no reason to question these numbers and the official numbers being given to you, but Russia doesn't have a very good track record when it comes to transparency.
Well, according to WHO and collaboration with WHO, we have seen very good collaboration with regard to strengthening the health information system over the last years, sharing data, looking into mortality. There have been major technical exchanges going on. So based on this track record that we have seen in collaboration with the Russian Federation, as I said, the WHO has not been mandated to raise such concerns, nor does it change anything because the figures are officially reported.
That was Dr. Melita Vujinovic.
You know what I mean? For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things and, you know, and you know, look at him trying to cover it up. It's hilarious.
This afternoon, one that we can focus on the 34 million Americans like myself who's living with diabetes. 7 million of which need insulin to live. 25% of these individuals have told us that they ration or skip doses of their medicine because they simply cannot afford it. And so this effort, CMI, MMI demonstration project that brings together the government, industry, and public health advocacy from the American Diabetes Association is the right thing to do. And we're thrilled to take this challenge head on. Today, together, we are helping millions of seniors access insulin affordably. This is a very big deal. The American Diabetes Association is the nation's leading organization that fights for people living with diabetes, and we are committed to continue to partner to make sure every American, and especially our seniors, have access to the medicine that they need to live. So thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Administrator Verma.
So, Tracy, are you surprised at how much we've gotten the price down, to what extent, and to the level that we brought it down to?
This is a very exciting day for people living with diabetes, and so any step to bring this lower is a good news. We know that we need to do more, but I'm so confident that together, we are going to be able to help all people living with diabetes thrive.
Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Tracy.
Person that's responsible for today's announcement, and that's President Trump. He's been steadfast in his commitment to lowering the cost of drugs and protecting the Medicare program and making sure it works best for seniors. The president also knows that it's the free market that leverages competition and negotiation, that is what can lower cost and improve quality for the American patient. And because of that, we've been working to slash Medicare's anti-competitive regulations, and it's worked. In the Medicare Part D program, as the president said, we are seeing low premiums, a 7-year low, And in the Medicare Advantage program, we're seeing a 13-year low in premiums. So we're putting money back in the pockets of seniors. And that means $3 billion in savings for patients and $6 billion in savings for taxpayers.
Not have sufficient testing capabilities at the beginning of this pandemic, and we still don't have a robust plan now. I will tell you as a parent,
affordable insulin, they can live a long and healthy life. And that's what we're here for today. Today is a very important day. It is a monumental day because, Tracy, we've been working for years to try to address the price of insulin, for years. This is an important day, and I want to thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank all the people here for making that insulin affordable to more people.
Listened and continue to listen to state and local authorities. We know that there are tens of thousands of American families that have been spared that heartbreak and loss. And we will express our gratitude to the American people for your incredible cooperation, the social distancing, the steps that you have embraced, the way you have been willing to forfeit aspects of your personal freedom to put the health of others first. But the good news is, Mr. President, that because of the steps the American people have taken, heeding your leadership and the guidance of state and local officials, we're getting there. And we're starting to reopen America as we speak in a safe and responsible way. In fact, Mr. President, every state in the nation has now taken at least some steps to reopen their economies. 52 states and territories have opened retail, curbside to go with reduced capacity. 44 states, we're glad to note, have opened up elective medical procedures in hospitals and clinics around the state. 38 states and territories have reopened personal care under strict hygiene protocols. 37 states have reopened restaurants. 34 states have reopened non-essential businesses, and the list goes on. And I think most meaningful to you, Mr. President, is so far 30 states and territories have reopened houses of worship under guidance of reduced capacity while allowing people to come back together in fellowship and prayer. This has all been made possible because of the whole of government, a whole of America approach, Mr. President, that you initiated when you launched the White House Coronavirus Task Force back in January. And before I step down, let me at least share a few encouraging words that we shared with America's governors today about the progress that we all have been making. Because to continue to safely reopen, we believe it's absolutely essential that we increase visibility by expanding testing across the country so that we can ensure that, that we can identify outbreaks where they occur. It's interesting, as you watch the daily numbers, new cases are declining around the country, and even more dramatically when you realize that a significant portion of new cases every day are actually in outbreaks in specific businesses or, as we've discussed today, in nursing homes or in meatpacking plants. But I'm proud to report, Mr. President, because of the partnership that you forged with commercial laboratories around the country, 14.1 million tests have been performed, and I heard again today from governors across America.
Baka yun.
is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. That all changes starting right here and right now.